Hey y'all, it's Sarah here, bringing you your daily dose of painting. I've got a new color scheme that I want to share with you guys of some wood tones. And as you can see, we're going to be using the same paint products that we have been using. And I'm going to stick with that for a while without complicating things too much. I want you to be able to see how much variety you can get out of these couple of products. Um, I'm not sponsored by Waverly. I've tried other products. I have not been able to get the consistent results that I wanted. You're more than welcome to try other products. Just keep in mind that you're working with foam core with a very, very thin paper surface. It doesn't always hold up. Be sure to practice first. Wait 24 hours. See what the strips look like the next day. Um, because I had several products that I thought would work out okay, and by the next day they were peeling apart and curling up. So keep that in mind. In case you can't read these very clearly on your screen, we're using Waverly Wax in clear, Waverly Wax in antique, and Waverly Chalk Paint in the color ink. And that is their name for black. So you hear me say ink, I'm really meaning just the color black. I have to watch myself on that because I will slip up and say ink since I was a scrapbooker, stamper, card maker first. But in this case, when I say ink, I'm referring to the black color in Waverly. So I'm going to go ahead and move these out of the way. I did want to clear up something. I keep getting asked about acrylic paints. Can we use acrylic paints? You can, but acrylic paints are a high moisture paint in comparison to the chalk paint, which means it has more liquid aspect than pigment. Chalk paint has heavier pigment, so you're using less product to get your color. So while you possibly can use the acrylic, you have to be really careful because the more moisture you add to your strips, to your foam core, the bigger risk you're taking with it. It's beautiful, but gosh, it really is delicate, guys. Okay, so educational part done. Let's get to some fun. What kind of fun are we doing today? We are going to do these really light wood tones. Let me zoom out. We're going to do some taupey, beigey gray. And I'm going to be showing you kind of all of these at once. So let me bring a few of these in here. And kind of line them up so you can see some comparison. So I did a little panel board in this and posted on the Peppermint Cactus group page. You guys loved it, wanted to see it. This is how you get that look, and I'll show you which board I was talking about. It was just a small one. At some point, I'm going to make it into a sign, but it's just been really handy to have as a little sample board. So this is what we're working on. I want to let you get a kind of a pretty fun look at this. Very neutral. Little bit of gray, little bit of brown. Lots of tone and texture to this. This is just a slightly darker version. You can see they look beautiful together. These do have a gray tone to them, slightly. However, they're not like the cool gray that I did in the cool gray tutorial. And I'm going to show you what I mean and compare so that you can visualize, just in case the lighting is different each time. So this is a cooler gray. If you notice, there are no beigey undertones. There are really no undertones at all. It is just a natural gray. Still beautiful. So is this one. And I'm going to show you what these look like mixed, so you have an idea. This has a mixture of both. The slightly warmer tones of the beige, blonde, gray look the taupier look, and then more of the silvery grays. Okay, so done with the show and tell part. Let's get messy. This is my favorite part. So I'm going to pull out a couple of my strips. Mine, if you haven't caught that in a previous video, these are cut from Dollar Tree foam core at 3 inches by 30 inches, which is the full length of the foam core. It does not come out to an even cut. So you get like a few strips, because it's, what is it, 20 inches? So you get 6 strips and then a weird 2-inch strip. I do it that way, one, because I like working in the 3-inch increments. My ruler is in a 3-inch increment. It just makes it easier. Secondly, that little 2-inch strip, I've been saving all of those, and those work out when I'm getting ready to make a frame for a project, and I'm that much more ahead of the game. You could certainly cut these in more even. So I've used my fingernails and I've carved down into this foam core. I've broken the surface. It's bent down some of these areas. And if you haven't seen me abuse this, I'm just going to take a couple little whatever I have in my junk drawer here. Mostly I just want to stab it. So I just got this little stick thing. I'm going to stab some nail hole / wormhole. Now, this particular color scheme is really light, so you're not going to see a lot of this like you do with the darker colors, and that's fine. Okay, so the first one that I want to go into is going to be our beigey type shade. Let me show you my little setup here. You don't have to go this far. I have been doing a whole lot of these. I needed a faster way to keep from grabbing the wrong brush, mixing them up. So in my brown color, in my antique. This has only been used for antique. These have only been used for antique and wax. This one stays saturated. I store this whole thing in a Ziploc bag, brush and all. Everything stays moist and loaded. This has the tiniest bit of little paint dried into it. And I may have to blend that out now. And you're seeing right now what this one is for. So to blend things out, this helps apply it and put some graining in. This helps blend some of it out. That's why it's not very saturated. I keep it really dry and mostly clean. Same thing in the black. Same thing with my brushes. This one only gets used for the darker black shaded colors. This one only gets used for the brown colors. This helps me when I'm doing this lighter process that my materials are already a little saturated, a little grungy, because I can go in, you know what, I'm going to flip that over and do this side, since I did that weird spot. Go back in and stab it. And like I said, your knot holes will show up really well. Your other smaller ones may not show up nearly as well for you. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to get out a white plate so that hopefully you guys can see as I mix these. And I'm going to zoom in while I'm pulling a little of these pigments over. So let me get you centered here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I'm pulling in from my wax. I'm going to get it applied to my plate here. And you can see, because this brush has been used so many times, it still has some residue in it. So we're going to go with the beigeier tones on this. I've just got some poured that I can pull off of. I wanted you to be able to see where I'm mixing it more so than anything. So I'm going to pull in just the tiniest bit of the brown. I'm going to make sure that it's plenty interactive with the wax. And I'm going to take a dry paper towel and I'm going to brush most of that off. And you may have to do that a couple times to load your brush, test it out on the side, especially if you're doing this from the beginning and you don't have an already broken, grungy kind of brush. I'm going to zoom back out so you guys can see as I do this. So we're going to hit, if you've watched any others, you know that I like the edges darker first. So while doing multiples, this becomes fairly easy. I'm going to squeeze those together. And I'm sure you have seen crafters do this with the Dollar Tree signs that have, that look like their palettes. The ones that have like the little indention strip shiplap look down the sign. And even with those, you want these connected areas, these side pieces, you want those to be kind of your darker area. And especially on these light shades, because we're not going to put a whole lot in the center of these. The most of what you see getting laid down, pigment-wise, is what you're seeing get done right here along these edges. And this is at the very least. So with there barely being anything on my brush, we're barely applying anything there. And you can see it's already taken on its identity. So to get the rest of the product off of here, I'm going to slowly stroke here over my little indentions, my knot holes. You don't want to push your pigment down in those like we do with the darker shades. You're going to get a weird spot around it, a weird halo spot around it that you won't be able to buff out. So on this particular look, we're going to dry brush the detail onto those. And then we'll add a little bit in later at the end with our shading. So I'm just going through, and you notice I still have not dipped this brush down into anything. Okay, my little light color mix is still there. Now I could go in, and let me show you what this, the dryer blendy or sponge will help do. So where this is still a lot of white here, it is barely, just ever so barely, going to spread some of this across and just slightly tint this white so you don't have this bright, stark white paper look. I mean, there's nothing on this. It's just moving around what little bit of paint might still be floating on here from the dry brushing. And that's very little, if any. And you can see it just kind of tones down that white just a little. So it's basically like kind of slightly tinting it, like rubbing on a foundation. I'm going to pull in a little of the gray hues. This is going to this is when you start hitting your taupey grays. So I'm just dipping ever so lightly into this black. And I'm not really stirring this in. I'm tapping it in. I almost want little bits and pigments of every single color individually and the colors mixed. If you can see that. So I've dipped that in. I'm going to tap some of that off because it's much easier to keep applying pigment than it is to get an accident off of here. And I'm going to go back in these center areas. And this pulls in those slightly taupe gray hues. Not by much. It's very subtle. And these little subtle tricks are what gives this so much realism when you get to the final product here. Let's see. Okay, so I've gotten my little edge parts pretty good. They're standing out really well to me. Certainly still very beigey. I'm going to hit that same kind of taupey black brown mix there over these knot holes. And you'll see me go back in and shade these a little bit. I like this kind of drag area around these, especially on this lighter color. Okay. Now, this is all you have to do for the beigey look. You go back in now again, once you've applied this slightly taupier looking color, blend that out a little more. So that it's blending that hint of gray into it. And you could very well be done with those. And that is a look all in its own. But we're going to do the same thing. Let's see, let me find a blank. Going to do the same thing. We're going to go a hair different, because I want you to have options. You don't just get gray shiplap, you get the perfect shade of gray shiplap. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm starting off with this taupey looking gray mix. Matter of fact, I'm going to add a little more of the grayer type pigment here. And you can still see, I want you to kind of see at the level that we're at. And this is going to give you that next shade down that's that, I know I keep saying taupe, but that's the only color I can think of that's close to it. I've seen a lot of furniture pieces made in this kind of gray color these days. As a matter of fact, I have like a little stand that's this kind of taupey brown gray somewhere in that neutral middle zone color. That's what we're going to get with this. You can start to see it. I'm going to give this just a second on that end. I'm not going to put anything else on that end so that those colors can soak in before we blend out. Now you see we're still fairly in the same line of things. Maybe a little more coverage. And it's just going to go just a hair further. So I'm pulling in a little more of my wax. And I'm going to hit a little more of this black. So we're going to get more gray than brown on this. Not by much. These are so diluted at this stage. You can kind of see where we're at here. Make sure I don't have too much applied to my brush. I'm just going to clean it off. I'm still going to use these same dry brushing strokes. I'm hitting a few spots that I kind of want to highlight. I'm hitting my knot holes here with a little darker shade. I love the graining on this one, by the way. If you leave it just like this, I'm going to show you what it's like blended out, because when I blend it, from what I've seen, it shows a little better on camera than the grainy pieces do. Okay, so you can see, let me let you look and see how that paint is just slightly sitting on that surface. And this is what I'm talking about on blending this out. I'm going to use the cleaner sponge. And you can start to see this soft gray. It's not really beige. It's not really gray. I don't have a good name for it. So I love this color just as it is. I'd throw a few boards out like that and then do the process again. And then I'd make a few that are heavier grain. So I like the slightly smoother, more blended grain. And I like to have some with heavier grain. So imagine I just tossed this one to the side and picked up another one just like. And I would just go in with my bristle brush, with my chippy brush, and I'm going to pull some more grains through this. If any of you are familiar with a lot of the gray that the Better Homes and Garden line has brought in at like Walmart, the entertainment centers and things that and the expedite units that they have done, and that taupey barnwood gray, that's kind of the result that you're getting with this color. So I've gone in, I've added a little more grain to this one, and this one would be a complete board and I would toss it to the side. But I do want to show you my extras because I do like adding as much detail as I can. That's how these just go from I rub some Waverly wax on something to I can't believe that's not wood. So I've just dipped into this mix with my little makeup sponge. And y'all, these makeup sponge, I love these things for this. You get a really kind of airbrush look to it. It's a very muted look when you tap it on like this. And you can get like 30 uses out of it, of these, if you can cut the ends pretty close. Which is what I usually do. I snip it down until it's just to the point I can't hold it anymore. So you've seen me do this with my knot holes on everything just about. I like this process. You could stop there. This is me. Go big or go home. So I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to take the same faded out taupey gray color. And I'm going to go here to these ends. And especially where I've got a habit of touching. And I've got fingerprints there. I've got some fingerprints there that I'm going to end up hiding. And you don't have to do this with every board. Every couple of boards, reach over, grab your little sponge, do a few spots. And there you go. You have such great depth along this side. It's just beautiful, beautiful. I should not get so excited over paper, but I do. So I'm going to put these near each other, and I'm going to show you kind of how this looks. You know me. I like to rattle them around after I finish paint colors. So some of these have been done with a much smoother grain. This one, when I did it, it had slightly more gray base to it. Still the same two colors, still the same lightness. It just had slightly more of the black in the mix. So you can see here, these look great. When they line up beside each other, their shadows look fantastic. This one you can tell I did, the other one's not necessarily. But you can see all this dimension here with just that little extra touch. Same on these. Right when you get these lines connecting, you see how this little bit of darkness just really makes like that wood is dimensional, that there's a shadow casting off of it, that it's thicker than 1/4 of an inch of foam. And it's all those little details kind of thrown in together. And it's certainly not something you have to do on every single board. Every couple of boards. Keep your ugly boards. If you have some that don't turn out as planned, keep them. If you're doing a much bigger project, those few mistake boards, they're going to blend right in with your really good ones. No one is going to examine every single one. It's the overall look that ends up being so overwhelming. So keep in mind that those little extra details, do it maybe every 5th board. And add just that little extra texture to it, that little extra depth. I don't know what it's called, guys. I'm not a painter. I'm sure there's painters probably that looked at this and are cringing, going, oh my God, those words are all wrong. That's not what that is. They're probably right, but it works. It gives so much more to the detail of that. So much more to the realism. I love this color. I kind of want to do my entertainment center this color. I have not played with this particular technique on furniture. I have done a couple of my other stain colors on furniture that was already painted. It worked out well. Not quite as easy as it is on this paper surface, but it can be done. So these techniques carry over to a lot of other things, other than, I don't think you're going to dig into any other product and be able to get the cool knot holes. But you can transfer what you learn here and the process that you learn here with these materials to a piece of furniture that you've chalk painted, to something else that you've decided to redo. So just know that they are transferable. It's just, it's not going to be exactly this result. And that's with anything that you paint. Every surface takes paint a little differently. But the techniques, they'll work universally if you want to try it on something else. And if you do, show us. Show us what you did. And if you're not part of the Peppermint Cactus group on Facebook, check it out, because some of these ladies have just blown my mind with how they've taken this and run with it. Their imaginations are probably going just as crazy as mine. Some of them have done entire walls, and it is just mind-blowing, especially when you consider that, when you walk up to this, there is real texture to this. There is, like, real definition to this. It beats any wallpaper that I've seen, any of the murals that I've seen. I know that there's the Sharpie shiplap technique right now that a lot of people are doing, but for people like me who have textured walls, that was not an option. So this really is, you've got to see what these ladies are doing with it. They have it has just taken off, and they've run with it and have created some really great accent walls in their home that really make a change. Some of them are done entire walls for less than $10 by the time you factor out that there was a door frame there or whatever. You can't buy wallpaper for that. You really cannot. And this has got so much more realness than wallpaper once it's up. Just keep in mind, you're not going to want to use this in wet areas. This is great for decorative purposes. And yes, it really does look like wood, but it does not function like wood. So bathrooms, kitchens, backsplashes, laundry rooms, all of those places, this is just going to deteriorate on you, and you're going to watch your work fall apart. And that hurts you down to your core. So keep that in mind, that you can get great visual looks from this, but you are not getting any durability on this. You're not getting any practicality kind of use out of this. This is purely for, wow, that looks pretty. And I'm happy with, wow, that looks pretty. I'm okay with things that are just there to be pretty and make me happy. So there you go. I hope you like all of these. I'm sure you'll be seeing a project up with this soon. So be looking out for that. I really want to combine these. Odds are I'm going to be combining these with a color. I have not decided what color yet. This has a real nautical vibe to me. For some reason, these kind of remind me of, I don't know, it just feels very modern nautical to me. So I may use these to play with some nautical design ideas that I've had floating around. But I do love that these can work with pretty much any color tone, because this was created with a mix of a cool tone and a warm tone. Between the black that was a cool tone and the brown that was a warm tone, you can almost mix this with anything and it's going to look good, because it's kind of basically both. So even up against the much grayer gray, I still think it's a beautiful combination. And now you can really tell that this is a taupier look. But I hope you liked it, guys. Be looking for some more. And once I get all the... Excuse me. I almost needed to sneeze there. I'm sorry. Be looking for a few more of the wood tone videos. And I'll try to knock out a couple more. I want to cover as many as I can, because I know everybody's got this idea of the woods that they want to introduce in their home, or the colors they already have there. So I'm trying to cover all my bases with red tones, brown tones, gray tones, ring tones, phone home. I don't know. I'm trying to hit all of those with the same color scheme that you can get the most use out of. Now, when it comes down to the actual crafts and stuff, once I get the basics down for everybody on these colors, I won't necessarily be reviewing them again in a craft video when I'm going in and showing a full project. There's no way that I could squeeze all of that in, and I already struggle with trying to get the paints explained. So I'm going to try to label these where you can refer back to it, so that when I'm working on a project, I can say, hey, this was the taupe base colors. Go check out that video if you want to go ahead and paint your boards up. And these are the colors that I added after the fact. Because now, once these are really dry, I can go in and dry brush these with whatever colors I want to, and I'm good to go. And they'll stay pretty flat. These will struggle a little more. You can't dry brush a lot of color on top of these. You know, like I've done with the teals and yellows and those kind of things. Because there's very little wax on these, sealing these off and closing this up. And you'll have more warping with these lighter colors. The heavier the pigment is on here that we lay down, so like your darker shades that we've had to use way more wax to, these kind of shades, you can dry brush a lot more color on it before the damage starts becoming apparent. The wax has had a chance to soak down into this. It would handle it just fine. So just keep that in mind. I really like that color with these colors. Oh, see, this is my problem, is that there's so many beautiful tones to be able to show you guys. And it just makes this such an unlimited craft idea concept. All the things that I've never been able to do with wood, I can do now. All the signs I've wanted to make, all the things I wanted to build out, I can feasibly do it from right inside my craft room. And it really, the results really are just beautiful. And once you get the hang of it, there's really no stopping you. I mean, just look at these colors. I'm going to get a little closer for you guys so you can see some of that all together. And it's just so pretty. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I'll quit rambling and we'll talk soon. Bye.